Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. In today's video, I'm going to be making 3 cards using some brand new alphabet and number dies from the Stamps of Life. So these alphabet dies and number dies are 4 inches tall. So these are big. They take up a big part of the card. So if you're doing a regular A2 size card, they take up a big part of that card. So it comes with 3 pieces. You have your outside shadow piece, there's an inside layering piece, and there is the piece that has the dots on them. So again, here are the alphabet dies A through Z, and then here are the number dies. You get 0 through 9 plus the ampersand sign. So this particular die is the shadow die. It cuts out a shadow of the letter or number, and then you have your layering piece, and then you have your dotted piece. Now you can actually take these and do different configurations. So you can put the dotted piece on the shadow layer just like this. You can also take the dotted piece and put it on that white piece, which was cut out of that second layer, and have a white background and use that as a standalone die, or you can then layer it on and have a tricolor look and layer it on your shadow piece. So here's another look that you can do. You can actually take that middle piece, that middle die, and just die cut it out of some pattern paper, and then you can take the dotted die and die cut that out of, in this case, white cardstock, and you can create a fun letter or number using your pattern paper. You can also take the dotted die and just die cut the dotted die out of just some solid color cardstock like I did here, and have this fun dot pattern around your letter. So here is an example. You can just see it on the red background. So I'm going to be making a card, one of the cards today, using this fun dot pattern so you can see how that works. So here's an A2 size card. You can see how big this die is in relation to an A2 size card, both in portrait and landscape orientation. So you can see it takes up a pretty large part of that card. For my first card, I'm going to be using the lattice background die from the Stamps of Life. It comes with this large rectangle, which I die cut a piece of lemonade cardstock, and then I'm going to layer or drop in that background into the large rectangle and die cut this piece of candy cardstock. So I'm just going to add some washi tape here to keep these dies together, and then I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. I did put the double-sided adhesive tape on the back of that cardstock before I ran it through the die cutting machine, so that just makes it easier to stick to that yellow rectangle that's laying there on the table. Now I don't have to worry about putting glue on the back of this background die. So just peeling back the adhesive backing, and then I'm going to put this directly on this piece of lemonade cardstock, and it's going to line up perfectly with the edges because it was cut out of that same rectangular die. So just press that down real good, and there's my background. So I'm going to use the letter B, and I have the shadow layer cut out of the white cardstock, and I have this pattern paper cut out of that next layering die, and then I took the polka dotted die and just die cut those middle pieces for the B. And then here I'm going ahead and taking the ink. I think this is the cloud ink from the Stamps of Life. Just inking up the edges of that pattern paper because it does match the gray in that pattern paper, and then I'm going to add that letter B directly onto the shadow layer, and then I'm going to add those inside pieces right on top of that. I'm going to be bringing in the dies from the Flowers to Layer set, and I die cut a flower out of the candy cardstock and one out of the lemonade cardstock, and I'm just adding the matching inks to the edges just to add some dimension and texture to those flowers. I also die cut the leaves out of the kiwi cardstock, and I'm adding some kiwi ink to the ends of those. And then I'm going to just start positioning everything where I want it to go on this card. So I have the 2 flowers there underneath, or I should say at the bottom of the B, and then I'm using the You Are Beautiful stamp. That stamp is from the Brush Strokes to Stamp set, and I just stamped it on some white cardstock, and I'm just creating a little fishtail banner end here on that piece of white cardstock. So again, just sticking everything where I want it to go before I add the glue, and once I have everything where I want it to go, I will add the leaves first because those leaves need to be tucked underneath the flowers. Then I'm going to go ahead and add that bee, and then I will start gluing down the flowers. So I'll start with the yellow flower, and then I'm going to take that sentiment and I'm going to put glue on the sentiment because that sentiment needs to be tucked underneath the pink flower. So then I'll go ahead and add the leaves, and I will then finish up by adding that pink flower and then adding the centers. So that layer is going to go on a white layer which measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then I'm going to add that to a piece of cloud cardstock, and that's actually an A2 size card base that I die cut out of the cloud cardstock. So it measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I just add some gray epoxy dots, and that will complete this card. For my next card, I'm using the 5x7 die set from the Stamps of Life. It actually makes a 5x7 card, and there is a layering die within that die set, which I die cut out of this poppy cardstock, and then I'm just going to add the words party. Notice that I'm using just the dies that have the dots in them, and I'm just lining them up on the front of this poppy piece of cardstock. I want to make sure that I have them at the same height so that they're all starting at the same position and that they are centered horizontally on that card front. And then I did add some washi tape just to keep them down, ran them through my die cutting machine, and I'm carefully trying to remove that washi tape because this is actually going to be the front of the card, so I want to make sure that doesn't tear that cardstock. But look at all of those fun dots in that word party. So I die cut that pool cardstock out of the same die that I cut the word party. That's going to be the background, and then I took the actual card base die from the 5x7 card die set and die cut a piece of the lemonade cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and apply glue to the back of the poppy cardstock, just making sure I don't get it near those holes in that paper because I don't want that glue to seep out. And then I'm going to add that to the pool layering piece, and it's going to layer up just perfectly because it was cut with the same die, so there should not be any overhang. I found these party hat stickers in my stash, so I decided they would look great on this card. The colors matched perfectly, so I went ahead and added some double-sided adhesive foam tape to the back of these party hat stickers and added 2 in the bottom right-hand corner. There is a little tiny button on the top of those party hats, which I actually decided I was just going to put some hot glue on there just to keep them on there because I didn't think they were sticking very well. So I have this ribbon. It's the same color as that pool cardstock. I did put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back, and I'm going to add that ribbon to the top of this card layer and then just wrap the edges around the back of that card layer. I took that same ribbon, tied it in a bow, put some hot glue on the back of the center of the bow and added it there at the top of the card, and that completes this card. Now for my next card I'm using the number dies, so I'm using the number 21. So I have the shadow cut out of the blueberry cardstock, and then the next layering piece is cut out of the strawberry cardstock, and then I'm going to add the glue to the strawberry cardstock, add those directly to the shadow layer. So the red is going to go on top of the blue, and then I also die cut the dotted dies. So notice that I die cut those dotted dies. I'm actually cutting them out. You see how you can layer and drop in the dots inside of the actual outline, and that's what I did to actually cut this out. So I'm peeling back the double-sided adhesive, and this was out of the Sunshine cardstock from the Stamps of Life. So I'm just adding that directly on top of the red just to create a tricolor look. So I have 3 colors with these dies. So that is so much fun. I love how you can add those different color layering pieces if you chose to do that. So just making sure that all of the little circles are out of the die or the die cut, and just adding that directly to that number 2, and there is my number. It's all ready to be put on a card. So I'm actually going to be making a slimline card, and I am using the Living Life paper pad from the Stamps of Life. It was when the fish tank to stamp collection was out, and I used the dotted pattern paper from that paper pad, cut it down to 3 1/4 by 8 1/4, and I layered that directly onto a piece of blueberry cardstock, which I cut out of it's actually my card base, and the slimline card base measures 3 1/2 by 8 1/2, and you can either cut your paper down to fit the slimline card base size, or you can use the slimline card base die set that the Stamps of Life sells and actually cut it with your die cutting machine. That's up to you. So I'm also using the Happy Birthday word die set too. I die cut 2 of the words happy, one in the blueberry, one in the sunshine, and then I also die cut the word birthday out of the strawberry. So the sentiment is going to say happy, happy birthday, and then it's going to have the number 21 at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all notice that I positioned everything where I want it to go, and then after I've done that, I'm just going to put glue on the back of each one of these pieces and add it to this card. So I also die cut some balloons out of some pattern paper, and the balloons are from the Balloons to Cut set, which is actually a stamp set with a matching die set. So I die cut 2 of the balloons. You can see one of the balloon dies there on the table. And then I have some twine and some glue dots there that I'm going to use for some string. So I'm just putting a glue dot on the back of the balloon, adding some twine so that the twine sticks. And then I'm going to just strategically position that twine behind some of those die cut words so that it looks like that those balloons are kind of just floating there. I don't want those ends of the twine just to be sticking out. I want them actually tucked underneath. It just makes for a more clean look on your card. So I'm positioning it where I want it to go. I am going to go ahead and add a glue dot to keep that string down or that twine down, and then I'm going to add that word happy right on top of it. So just add some glue here and then add that to the front of the card, and then I'll do the same thing with the other balloon. I will have all of these supplies linked down in the description box below, so if you're interested in any of these products, you can head on over to the description box and take a look at that. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe for more card making tutorials from me. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.